So we're Purifire Labs, and we're a team of engineers and scientists that are building circular carbon solutions that would accelerate the transition to net zero. The one thing that we have aligned across our team is that we want to have scaled impact, and we believe that our technologies have the potential to remediate millions of tons of emissions over the coming decade. So we're focused on creating a portfolio of pressurized liquefaction technologies. So on one end, we have our plastic liquefaction technology called hydrothermal liquefaction. This is a technology that operates at 350 degrees Celsius and 150 bar pressure. And then at the other end, we have a CO2 liquefaction solution, a carbon capture solution that operates at -50 Celsius and 50 bar pressure. So far, we've been focused on developing the plastic liquefaction technology. We have already reached TRL level 5. We've got 2 patents on that, and now we're just putting the funding in place to then scale up the technology to TRLs level 7 or 8 and become revenue generating. What I do want to focus on for this conversation is around the CO2 liquefaction technology, the carbon capture technology, which already has 1 patent, a 2nd patent that we're working on, and we want to move from TRL level 3 to TRL 7 or 8. So very different from what Sylvain just presented at Neocarbon. We're focused on trying to make industrial processes more sustainable. Steel, cement, shipping, fertilizers all have a significant carbon footprint, and we want to be able to apply our solution to be able to tackle these polluting industries and make them more sustainable. Our solution is a little bit different from most of the solutions that are out there in the market. We are able to not only capture CO2, but liquefy CO2 directly from flue gas streams without the use of any amines or solvents. We're using a cryogenic carbon capture system through sequential cooling and pressurization. And that allows us to take emissions from a flue stack and end up being captured in the liquefied form. The advantage of our technology is that, unlike most of the competition that is focused on using amines or solvents or catalysts to be able to capture carbon, we're able to do this without the use of any catalysts or amines, reducing our operating costs. But more importantly, when it comes to scaling this technology up, we're able to do that because not only can we reduce the footprint of the actual cooling towers or capturing towers, but we're able to then go out there and apply very few moving parts to be able to do this. In terms of the market size and potential, about 19 or 6.2 billion tons of emissions came from industry alone. That figure is very, very similar for Europe, where about 20% of emissions came from polluting industries. In terms of TRL levels, we're currently at TRL level 3, where we've used a controlled experiment in the lab to be able to capture solidified CO2. We now have downstream LOIs with a local power company and a downstream, so on the upstream side with the local power company, and then on the downstream side for uses with an F&B and entertainment company in the UK. This will allow us to accelerate the development of this technology and the processes that go along with it and reach TRL level 6 and 7. So in terms of impact, what I do want to focus on is the scale of capture. For smaller systems and people that are focused on distributed systems, such as shipping, and there's some startups that are focused on trucks, the scale of capture is very small, and the impact that they're able to have is via replicability. On the other hand, we want to focus on scalability, and we want to try and find larger applications of our system, therefore increasing the impact that we're able to have and increasing the amount of emissions that we're able to capture.
Time is up.
Oh, okay. So I'll just end up with that. But we're looking at about $1.5 million in seed funding. That's 1.9 million USD, and that would allow us to increase the readiness of our technology, reduce the engineering risk, and establish unit economics. So thank you for listening, and I will pause there for any questions you may have.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Neil. Daniel, Michael, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm curious, how easy is it for customers to integrate your solution or retrofit the technology that you're working on?
Yep. So it is something that is unique to every kind of industry. So whether it's steel, whether it's cement, there is a certain amount of front-end engineering design that we need to undertake. But we want to continue to focus with large industry players and large partners where we can use the same existing designs to be able to retrofit multiple systems onto multiple exhaust streams or multiple factories.
Are you focusing on one use case to start with, or is it the same core technology for the different applications?
Yeah, so we have an LOI signed at the moment with an anaerobic digestion plant, which then uses combined heat and power to pump electricity back into the grid. So that's our immediate focus to kick off with. But then we want to move on to other applications, the polluting industries that I mentioned, steel and cement in particular, which have a massive carbon footprint.
It seems like you have two totally different businesses. Is that just me? It feels like you developed one and then decided to develop the carbon capture technology after.
Yes and no. So initially, we wanted to move from the HTL into a more vertically integrated solution where we could have gone from converting plastic back into oil and then maybe into clean electricity with some carbon capture. But as we looked deeper into the market, we realized that there were independent applications for both technologies. And while we're developing these technologies, we'd want to avoid vertically integrating them and keeping them as independent solutions that can have independent industry applications.
Do you need independent teams then? I feel like all of your skill sets, your sales, everything is going to be diverted when you have two different, very different focuses and technologies. It feels like two startups.
It's something that certainly may involve two different teams, but the core engineering team is pretty much the same because they're both pressurized liquefaction technologies. So maybe different sales processes and commercial teams, but the core engineering team, we think, would probably have the same skill sets and the same processes from being able to take products from design to conceptualization and then development and installation.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Daniel, Michael?
Neil, can you give us more information on traction so far? So, how far along are you in terms of development or deployment?
Yeah, so we're at TRL level 3 so far with this technology. We've got multiple conversations with various partners. But we've got 2 LOIs that are signed both on the upstream and downstream side. And we fit in nicely in between those upstream and downstream uses to be able to prove that we can do carbon capture in this way and do it in an energy efficient way that we can then scale and reduce costs with economies of scale.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you know the limit in terms of economies of scale, or a rough idea of what you're shooting for price point wise?
Yes, I mean, ideally, from what we understand, that it's a little bit different from what Sylvain was saying around direct air capture. I think that the LCOC, the levelized cost of carbon, in various markets is anywhere between 100 and 200 USD. So we certainly want to try and reduce the levelized cost of carbon and try and bring it down under the 100. But unlike most of the other solutions, we have very few operating expenses aside from the power. And so it's just really about trying to make this more efficient by regenerating or recycling the heat and the feedback loops that we can have to make the system more efficient.
Daniel or Michael, anything else on your side? You're muted, Michael.
Sorry about that. One last question for me is just, I would love to get a better sense from you, Neil, on unit economics to the degree that you know what they are.
Can you expand on what do you mean by unit economics?
Yeah. So help me understand how much you expect for it to cost to create kind of like an installation, and then the revenue that you all would generate from each installation, and the savings that a potential customer would realize.
Yeah. So I think it's a complicated answer, but I'm happy to take it offline, Michael, if you want to have a more detailed discussion around unit economics.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.